for some reason. It's gone all the way back to the beginning. Give me a sec. Technical issues already. I did have it to start at my point, but for some reason it's gone back.
There you go. Back one back. Oh, there you go.
No. All right then. Is everyone okay? Can you hear me at the back? All right. So just make sure this is working. Excellent. All right. So you've just heard from Clarke, and I think already you can see that this was never a military exercise, and all requests for documentation and paperwork to prove such a thing has never materialized. And when we do ask them, they can't even provide a single shred of paper. They're clearly hiding something, and we've been grinding them down to the point now where they can't even say information is not held or it's within section 26. So they know that we know. It's just they can't come out and admittedly say it. But we've already smashed the cover story a bit, so all I'm going to do is just grind it into the dirt and stick the final nail in the coffin with it, and I'll give you some other bits to go with it, alright? Okay, so I'm just going to start with this because we've been accused of doing all this for money and just for fame. But this is our contract, at least a part of it, that we signed with Sky History Channel. And just to point out that little red bit there, we gave our £200 speaking fees, that's individual fees, 400 quid to an autistic charity in Wales. That was actually in our contract that we signed. So when we did that, they got 400 quid. And we've been doing that with all the speakers' fees that we've ever had. You know, sometimes people pay us, you know, the petrol and, you know, the traveling stuff. But when it comes to money that we get paid to do this, it all goes to the charities. So let that be a thorn in their sides, because we're not doing this for money at all. It's costing us money just to get you this information. So now I'm going to introduce a witness who is very important to this case. We call her Donna. And Donna is very important to this case for a number of reasons. She practically witnessed all other things, except, of course, the thing with the orbs and the triangle. But there are many other things she witnessed herself. And just a couple of things for you to look at there while I'm speaking about it. Donna knows the area. She lives in Pentyrch. She knows Kaz and David, and she was also a witness to the planes that were circling for 3 days and nights. She witnessed how Kaz and David behaved after they saw this event, and of course was a witness to many of the other things herself, such as the snow in the fields, the ball patch, the military, and everything like that. And I thought it would be interesting to introduce her a bit more, because everyone's accusing Kaz of being just one witness and that's it. Oh, there's one witness to this case, so therefore we can just shrug it away because she's doing it for money and fame. Oh, no, we're not. Now, after the sun came up on that night, Donna actually has given me a statement over the years, and I've had a chance to speak with her because she is a working mum, you know, so her time is busy. The time is limited, but now that I've had a chance to speak with her over the years, I've been able to put some real good information together. That there is the ball patch. This is Tinnacoid Road. And one of the things that Kaz and David said to her is that one of those green orbs that came out of the top of this pyramid, the one that flashed the planes and told them to come in the direction, you know, this is roughly where it went, sort of a northeast, northwesterly, westerly kind of direction. They went across the field into this one here, and I was hoping maybe they might find some more evidence of something on the ground, something physical, but they didn't find anything, but they just checked it out anyway. So they came back into the ball patch area here, and there's a reason we call it the ball patch. It's not because the land is bald and barren, it's just that you can see from this photograph here, the grass itself looks like it's had the life sucked out of it. The ground itself just looks barren. And for many years, nothing would grow there. And any time that something did actually manage to grow, within a matter of like a day, a week, you know, the plants would actually would not grow. And this is where those fingers, that hand of lightning came down. This is actually the area right here. And that's what Kaz was looking at. It was like those orange, big red, orange, fiery-like fingers that stopped the craft from hitting the ground like it was trying to correct itself. And Donna said that as she was coming round these areas, she felt like some sort of strange heat on her face, like some sort of energy was affecting her body, her face. And you can see in the yellow there, as I came round, the right side of my face became warm, which I thought was strange, as I don't feel the right side of my body. She has medical condition, nerve damage in that side, but she was getting sensation from all this, which normally she doesn't. Now, this is some screenshots taken from a video of Smilock Woods. Remember the strange snow we've talked about in the past? Well, she's also a witness to this, and I'm just showing you the screenshots here of how that looked like when you were standing, if you were there that day, standing in the Pentyrch fields around that Apache area. This is what it would have looked like. And you can see, I'm not going to read it all, I'm just highlighting the parts I want you to look at. It wasn't snow, it was the size of rice, but in a bowl shape, but it felt like marshmallow. You could squeeze it, and it would near enough go back to its original shape. Oh, you ever held snow in the winter and you get that crunchy sound and it sort of melts? This has got some sort of like memory shape ability to it. It goes back to the way it practically looked when you picked it up previously, which is very strange. And just to describe some more, as I was doing this is something else I find interesting. I had a weird feeling that something was with me or watching me. I scanned the area but couldn't see anyone or anything. So there's just something about this area that's making her feel very, very strange. Now bear in mind now, right, this is just following the few hours, the sunrise, after the event where that hand of lightning come down. A lot of energy has gone into that ground and she's feeling it. Now this is something I found recently actually, and it's a report by the Defense Intelligence reference document here. And it lists a number of all these very strange things that people experience when they have what they call here exposure to anomalous vehicles. UFOs, UAPs they're now calling them. And you can see some of the listed things in this document here. Hair loss, fever, nosebleeds, heart palpitations, headaches, nightmares, burnt skin. And there are many, at least like 100 others or so, that this document actually listed. So it just shows that the military and the governments are aware of what effects this thing has on people. Oh, I forgot to show you that. What was causing it? Electromagnetic radiation. Now, anyone who knows anything about these craft, they seem to have some kind of electromagnetic radiation capabilities, or they use electromagnetism as a means of a propulsion or power source, which I find very interesting. Now, when we were investigating all this, there's the ball patch again. These are some of the magnetic field readings that we were getting. This is the burned gorse bush that has now since been chopped down. The ball patch area has now been destroyed. It's no longer there. Just 2 days after the book came out, actually, within 2 days. Coincidence. But I want you to see, look, Kaz and David suffered long-term health problems after the event. Donna herself has also suffered unusual symptoms after experiencing all this. Now, when I was going into this field, and many others who wanted to be a part of the event that day just to see what we were doing, they also talked about migraines, nausea, burning skin, sensitivity to light and dizziness. I myself experienced this on at least 5 or 6 occasions. I'd go home, I feel like I've just had the life sucked out of me, and I've come down with a massive fever or something. But it wasn't a fever and it wasn't an illness. It was something coming off of this land. And other people who were sensitive to EMF, they also reported ill health problems. And I don't know if you've ever heard of EMF sensitivity. Some people have reported that they're very sensitive. Down there is the boundary between the second and third field. I'll get into this as I go forward. But it's like some people would just come into the tree line there and they wouldn't go any further. It's just, no, I can't go any further. There's just something not right here. They didn't even know, some of them, about that ball patch area. They weren't familiar with it. They just walked in there, couldn't understand why they wouldn't go any further. It was just something strange. And there was another lady one time who actually, I think she's over it now, but she had cancer at the time. She went into that field with Kaz just for a tour, a walk around. She was normally very ill and lethargic, because of the chemo and all the other treatments she's on. She comes out of that field, she feels like she's just been reborn. Really, really healthy, she feels great. I don't know how long that lasted, but that is a very, very strange thing indeed. So what is this snow? This is a phenomenon that's been reported a number of times, and some people refer to it as angel hair phenomena. Now, I found this report And it has been covered on a number of TV stations, American and British. And just to show you how they describe it, look, this was a case from Oloron, France, October 17th, 1952. Someone described seeing this sort of like long cylinder-like object. It looked like some sort of a white cottony, silky kind of thing. But what's really interesting is that out of the cylinder, or following it, were these 30 smaller objects. Now, if you remember what Kaz said she saw, or what David especially saw, the 15 to 20 objects, they were all red in color and they all had this strange arcing of lightning coming off of them. A pyramid had arcing lightning coming off of them. One of those orbs actually shined light on Kaz, as she said. She felt like she was being scanned. I just find these things very interesting in the coincidence. Also the movements, the rapid and short zigzags. Some of these, one of the I think it was the one that shined the light on the planes to kind of follow it. That, remember Kaz said it was bouncing around like Tigger, zigzagging and moving? All of these things get reported a number of times where people get close up and see these things. It's just a common thing. All right? And I just thought I'd put this in with the strange properties. Look, they say here that it had a sort of, the material would dissolve quickly. It had a strange texture. Jellyfish and squishy to the touch, like the marshmallow description. It would have this sort of like spider web appearance, and this is following a massive UFO event. And some people have actually questioned us as to why they never got samples. Well, who knew there was going to be a big investigation afterwards? Or whether or not, because they're not, as Kaza said, none of them are UFO investigators. They didn't know about collecting samples. And by the sounds of it anyway, it would have been difficult to keep these things in possession, because sometimes when people have tried to collect this material, it dissolves very quickly. Quicker than anyone can get it back to a lab and do some sort of analysis on it. But there have been people who have done it, and they've found out that it's got some very high tense strength material properties, and it's also got some sort of silicon and magnesium and high tension torsion properties. But it would be amazing if we could have sampled it, because I wonder we would have found something similar. Now this is something else that Donna relayed to me. This was later on. It wasn't like the first couple of times I met her, but she reported strange people in these fields after the military had gone. And this is something I have found to be quite consistent when major military sightings have actually happened, especially of this magnitude. You get the craft, then you get the military stepping in, and then sometime later, strange people who don't look like they belong in the area just suddenly come along, and they seem to just observe or monitor or whatever it is they're doing. And Donna described to me that two people, just to give you an idea of what you're looking at here, this is where the military were doing a lot of their stuff. This is the abandoned quarry here. Can anybody see that red dot? Can anybody see it? Alright, well this is the abandoned quarry. This is a path that you can walk down here, and these arrows represent a number of things. The yellow arrow represents the direction Donna was coming from. This is a gate down by here, look. And they were walking up this way where the blue arrow is. Donna was with friends, family, walking the dog. It was a nice day, they just wanted to get out and stretch their legs. But this is where they saw the strange two people, right here, look. And seeing Donna and the dog, they decided to take a detour to the right and go up the side of this particular gap here. And I'm going to play a couple of minutes of clip, and I'll let Donna describe to you what she saw. Okay, so Donna, you're here. I'm not showing you. There's a post over there that you can climb. But there were two people with a dog, and you said they were strange, and why is that?
They were just, it felt like they were out of place. They didn't belong here. So the woman was quite tall, around about 6 foot, or maybe just under. She had dirty blonde, silver, curly hair, down to her shoulders, just under.
Curly?
Yeah, it was definitely curly. She
Dirty
made
blonde, so like dark blonde.
She made me think she was like Australian or a surfer, that kind of dirty blonde. She had very sharp features, she was thin. Her face, her jawline, her eyeline sockets, everything was pristine and sharp, and I would say very symmetrical.
So she was quite an attractive lady then?
She was. To be honest, she made me think like she was from someone on Home and Away or something. Like she was had been an actress or something. she just struck me like I knew her from somewhere.
That's where they went, by the way.
But definitely nowhere from here. I've never seen
what
her
about
since.
the bloke?
Can't find her. The bloke was shorter than her. His head come up to just over her shoulders. He had a beanie hat on. He had dark hair. Again, sharp features on his jawline. Darker than she was. She was quite, I don't want to say like albino white, but very white compared to him.
Milky white.
Yeah, I don't want to say he was dark or just normal colour skin. Yeah.
So why were they out of place?
Because they didn't, it was just, they didn't belong here. They had the wrong clothes on for the area that you
What
walked
were they wearing?
in. He had like a mountain jacket on with a big rucksack and a beanie hat on. It was a nice day, so even if it's cold, you don't need to wear stuff like that. If you're from here, you know you don't need to wear stuff like that.
Okay,
She was
so they were
different.
foreigners.
Yeah, she was different clothing, completely different from him. I could see that her arms, the bottom half of her arms, she was skinny.
Size 8?
I don't know, she was quite tall, so I want to say maybe, yeah, no, probably, yeah.
So what does this have to do with the Pentyrch thing?
For me, because the people were just weird, the fact that they, not being rude, just turned up out of the blue. It wasn't so much that, it was coming around the corner. They didn't have enough time to disappear from
So
where
by the time they
were.
walked up the path, and you said there's something about the dog is weird?
The dog, my dog's gone up towards their dog. She wouldn't attack anyone, but if a dog approaches a dog like that, normally the other dog will react in a certain way, whether that be running away or coming towards you, anything. But the dog done nothing. It never got commanded by them to do anything. It just
You didn't say nothing or give eye
no,
contact?
it didn't. It was looking towards.
Like, it's okay, don't worry, we'll go this way, is it, or what?
Yeah, they didn't. It wasn't
They didn't
even,
say nothing?
No, it wasn't even that long. Like, we didn't stand there and have conversations. Literally, I jumped over the fence. The dog's run off. My mate's gone to grab the dog. I've grabbed the dog. Looked up at them. There's been no like exchange from them. I've gone, oh dogs, sorry, and there's like nothing back off them. All there, no reaction of their dog, and they've literally.
So we're going down the path now, so you came here.
We walked down to. I'll show you now.
Do you run out to see them, or you run out to see them, like, are you okay or something, or?
No, I didn't say nothing to them because the dogs didn't do anything to each other. It was more, I just grabbed the dog.
So they had no time to get out of your sight?
Yeah, they were literally 10 feet in front of us.
So, it's very interesting that the people don't seem to fit the area, they don't seem to be dressed for the occasion, and the most interesting thing is they don't seem to have the right mannerisms or the right sort of characteristics. You know, when you meet someone rambling, walking, or whatever it is that you do out in the countryside, they've just disappeared around that corner and they couldn't see him again. And in February, I think this is just coming into March time, so the trees haven't quite got all their leaves yet. You can see right through those trees and right through them. They couldn't have got away, but they disappeared. I find that very, very strange. And that's not the first time something like this has been reported. Now you can make it out what you want, but for me that's very significant because it's just more bizarre things connected to the case. Now, yeah, EMF, misunderstood by others. Now this is something I have to nail down a bit more, right? Because I've worked very hard on this particular piece of evidence. Because when we were originally contacted, and this was like a year before the Sky History thing went out, they were asking, you know, do you want to be on the show? Would you like to be involved? And when we started to get into the discussions of the case and what we were actually going to use, I sent them just about everything we had on the EMF. I sent it to Sky History, I told them what it was about, I laid it out for them, pure and simple. And months went by where I explained it, but then for some reason, Craig Charles and Sarah Curtis really failed to cover this. If anything, I think they tried to sabotage this evidence, and I'm going to show you why. Because, you know, electromagnetic radiation was found with EMF scans, and I've always said this, that no man-made or natural explanation has ever been offered. There's no man-made object or anything natural in that area, in the area now, that would cause the EMF. There are man-made objects there, but it's not giving off the EMF. And I'm going to show this to you. But they failed to cover it, and they sabotaged it with... They put Emilyn Williams on at the end. He didn't do any of the scans. He didn't actually do the further studies afterwards. But I do stand up for Emilyn a bit on this one, right? They did use him as a target to discredit it, right? But I felt if they're going to cover it, they should have talked to me about it, because I only got like 2 minutes, and I was talking about more or less the FOIs and stuff and the radar returns. But they deliberately ignored this, and I'm not happy about it. But this is something that I want to cover, because, you know, baseline readings and test comparisons. This is something Sarah brought up. What is the baseline reading? Well, what is a baseline reading? It's quite simple when you're doing EMF scans, because anytime in case histories I've studied, whenever these objects, especially like large ones or something that, you know, about the size of a car or whatever, when they get close into the fields or farmland, countryside, anywhere where there's like countryside areas, if they get close enough or if they even land, they do leave radiation signals behind. And if you've got EMF scanners or Geiger counters, you might be able to detect it. So what was the baseline reading? Okay, let me explain. The scanner that we had at the time measured in 2 different areas, electrical field and a magnetic field. The electrical field never registered anything. It was always 0, inside, outside, nowhere. But when you got with the magnetic field, right, the areas that were not affected, the ones that we know were not affected by anything, right, that's in Smilog and Pentyrch, 5 miles separate of each other. Usually it was about 0.05 to 0.1 microtesla, and I'll explain the measurements of that, but that's just normal background stuff. You have one now on you and you go anywhere, and that's probably what you'll get. But once we got into the areas where we know that were affected, then suddenly the number jumped up. It went from 0.45 to 0.7 microtesla. That's for Smilog Woods. And then when we went to the Pentyrch fields, and this is multiple scans, it was anywhere between 0.5 and 1. And sometimes it went as high as 1.2 and 1.7. Now, these numbers are quite considerate. They don't sound big, but they are quite big, and I'm going to explain why that is. That was what we were getting for 2 years at least. This is the map that we put together originally. You can see there's the gate, that little orange line there with the 2 blue dots. This number of other colored dots are what we actually measured. This is just the magnetic field range, not the electrical field now, just the magnetic field. Now that yellow line there, and that yellow line there, this represents the path that the actual craft took. Now, when Kaz and David spoke to me originally about this, they told me what the craft did. When they finally saw it and how it moved, it started right down here, seemed to come close to them, and then it went back. That was a path that it followed, and amazingly, when we started to scan it all, we were mapping it out, and I'll explain how that came about. But that's the path that it followed. You can't make that up. You just simply cannot make that up. Now, let me just explain what we done. Once we'd scanned all the areas and we were certain that it's not coming from radios or antennas or people's mobile phones, the camera's not going to affect the EMF reader, because if you're doing ghost hunters or you've seen people online when they're filming it and they're doing their EMFs, it would make the entire exercise pointless, because they can just say it's the camera. The camera has nothing to do with it. Nothing. But once we were able to figure out what we had, I said we got to do a grid reference search. The grid reference search is very simple. Once you've got an idea of where everything is, you can just start in an area, square it all off or quadrant it all off, whatever, and you can just go left to right and up and down, and whenever you get a signal, you can mark it out. You can mark it with a stick or a ribbon or something, and then when you're finally finished, you get what you see there. That's the trail. There's the ball patch. The ball patch was the most active area. This is Smilog Woods. That's the impact site right there. These blue lines represent the bike trails people come down. Now that yellow line there that Kaz showed you earlier, right, that's actually where the, whatever it is, one of the barrel orbs or whatever they shot down, that's where it came through. Right into the impact area. And if you follow that back, it goes right to Lancaster Common by the Royal Glamorgan Hospital. It all fits. It all fits. Now, I don't know how it was able to stay active in that area for long, but it must have been some pretty powerful craft, you know, with powerful energy coming from it to do that, because obviously it's been hit and it's left a trail for us to find at least 2-3 years after at least. Now, someone actually put a chart together of the Pentyrch field area, and I want you to pay attention to that number on the bottom right there. It's averaging out what we got when we did the grid reference search, and it's saying there 0.52 microtesla. Now, let's just take a look at this. This is a chart. And there's the website that you can get it off. It lists the magnetic field strength that is safe for you in your home. And they've got it here 1 to 5 and over 5. Now, in microtesla, if you times it by 10, right, that gives you the milligauss reading. They're the same measurements of unit, just measured differently. Milligauss is actually 10 times what microtesla is. And if I just show you here, look, 1 milligauss equals 0.1 microtesla, 5 milligauss equals 0.5, and I got a 0.52. And if I show you over there, look, the bit that's highlighted in red, anything above a 5 is considered of extreme concern, and this is coming from an outdoor area with no power cables, no underground cables, no nothing. So what the hell is causing that signal to be there? And I asked a bunch of people this, people who had done their own UFO investigations, who had experience with all this, and they said the most likely cause of it is that that area has become magnetized. The minerals and the soil and the rocks and whatever is there, it's become magnetized for a while, and that's why our meter was picking it up. And over time it's dissipated and the ground has gone back to normal. You can go through there now yourself if you want to. I'll even show you where to find it, and you won't find a damn thing. Won't find anything. EMF scans are correct because someone was trying to tell us that this particular meter that we used, I'm not going to read all this, but they're trying to say, right, that when we were using this particular model, and the model that we used was called GM3120, that the model we're using is giving off 10 times a higher reading than what's actually being put together. So they're trying to say we're 10 times off the scale. No, we're not. Right? I want to show you something here. This is the one that we had. It's called KK Moon. This one here is by Pentyrch. Now you can see the electrical field readings on the top, and that's the magnetic field readings on the bottom. Someone is actually testing a mobile phone there on both of these occasions. There's our KK Moon look, and there's our one. This one here has no name on it. It's a different brand altogether. Although it has the same sort of technical spec layout and everything, they've obviously made it with inferior parts, which is why this particular model here is absolutely useless. It doesn't do anything. You can buy it, but it won't be effective for you. If you want to buy a cheap meter just to get started, I always recommend getting these two models, the KK Moon or the Pentyrch one, because that one there, the no name or other brands like it, will just be useless to you. So that's a little personal experience there. Just to show you something that we also did, these are my other meters that I compared it with. That's my more expensive one there. That cost me like £125. These other two are the ones that we had as well. That little white thing on the bottom there, I was just testing it on my Geiger counter, and I was just moving them all around, and as you can see, the one with no name, no matter where I put it, didn't find anything at all. And just to test it in the house, just so I could, compare it with other items. Your TV, your electrical box, you top up your electric, toasters, microwaves, you can see, look, there they are on the floor, not being affected, and there they are giving off accurate readings for their specifications. So the readings we got are accurate. I've tested and tested and tested and tested it again. There's just simply no way you're going to tell me that this is wrong. And that's what Sky History forgot to tell you, or refused to tell you. Sabotaged it. That's probably some of the strongest physical evidence that we've got right now to show you. So now we're going to look at some really interesting things here. Now this is Kaz talking to Ben Emilyn Jones. That's not Emilyn Williams. This is Ben Emilyn Jones of the Hospital Porter UFO. He does his own thing. He came down to speak with us and he wanted to look at it himself. This is the gate that Kaz was standing on. This gate here. I want you to pay attention to the coloration of the trees there. On the left you can see, yeah, it's getting into autumn now. So they're starting to lose their colour. But look how quick it's losing the colour on the right compared to the left, because this is where the green barrel was when it shined all that energy in that direction. It's affected that tree much more than this side over here. And just to show you something else, again, this is our pyramid. If you remember, right, the gate's down by here on this drawing, look, and there was one red barrel that would sort of like watch while the other one was interacting with Kaz and David, especially Kaz. This is the area here, look, where it was. I don't know if you can see it there, look, but that particular bush there is absolutely dead. It didn't grow for many years. And I want you to pay attention to how the leaves look, right? Because from the left side of this picture, it's green, and then it starts to go like a yellowish color, then it starts to go brown, and then they just start to rot, and then there's nothing there. And then when you follow it on, look, again, it follows, and it's consistent. And there's some of the scans that we got from that area. That was an active area for many years. No other areas beside the gate in that first field was showing EMF signals. There's a cable that runs along further up, but it's nowhere near this area. That's an artificial man thing, right? But that's not in the other field where the major craft had been seen. And just to give you an idea of how historical cases prove this. This is a case from 1981 called Trans-en-Province Physical Trace Case. This was an object that landed in France, and that's what it looked like there. The one witness who saw it said it was like two oval shapes underneath and on top. It landed on the ground. It left physical burns. The plants were affected, the grass was affected, and people actually came in and tested the area. They did soil samples and grass samples, took it to a lab, produced a report, and one of the things that they really discovered is that the chlorophyll, now this is the green, this is what gives grass and leaves that green color. Chlorophyll is the chemical that makes it green. But when they discovered that the area that had been affected, the chlorophyll had been weakened by at least 30 to 50%. And they concluded that it had to be some type of electric energy field, most likely electromagnetic radiation. So more consistencies with this case and that one again. And I would have liked to have done some real full scientific investigation. We were promised some university people would come down and do it, but they never did, despite promising us, So we had to make do with what we got at the time, We don't have that equipment, and it costs a lot of money to do. So I would have liked to have done it, but when people promise you and they don't deliver, I can't take responsibility of that. I'm just going to play you this quick case here of what they discovered. If we did ours, I reckon we would have found something like this.
Studied officially is that it left a lot of physical evidence to study. The second part is that it was one of the most thoroughly investigated cases scientifically in all UFO history.
GAPAN, a unit of the French space agency mandated to investigate UFO reports, is called in to examine the site and collect soil and vegetation samples for analysis. The samples taken by forensic technicians are quickly analyzed in the lab. The results are startling. Plant matter taken from the landing spot show a significant reduction in chlorophyll levels, as if the plants had aged with unnatural speed. This effect is consistent with exposure to radiation. The soil underwent a chemical reaction that typically takes place nearly 600 degrees centigrade, well over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature is consistent with microwave radiation, like the type that's used in a microwave oven. But scientists do not comprehend how the craft could have propelled itself with microwaves. Because of the rare physical evidence, the case attracts intense media interest in France and continues to be studied by UFO experts today.
So yeah, I mean, we don't have that level of investigation, but we've done a hell of a lot of other stuff. And as you can see, the people who have been inside the fields have been affected by it. There's physical evidence, at least within the trees and the grass and everything else. Let's take a look at Smilog. There you can see again, there's the broken trees. The trees are burnt, but there, look, you can see that pinkish sort of color on the top right there. Those trees were not like that before, but after the events of that day, those trees are still like that now. You can go up to Smilog and actually see that. This is Paranormal Scholar. They did a documentary on this in 2021 with Kaz, and they went up to Smilog Woods and they took some further pictures of this. So this is like 2021, so very, very recent. There's one of the trees, look, with that still silvery, pinkish burn look on it. Now this tree here is very interesting because that one there has signs of distension on it. Distended is the word I think is what I'm looking for. It's been stretched from it's been expanded from the inside out. Something inside has caused the tree to expand, and the only thing that really could have done that is some heat affecting it from the inside, causing, the material and the liquid and stuff to expand outwards. And of course, we had plenty of EMF signals coming from there. And, this is one thing that Craig Charles and his team got right, because some people are trying to say, oh, it's lightning strikes, it was an earthquake, those trees were like that anyway because of wind damage. Well, this is one thing that they got right, and I'm just going to play this quickly because I want it from their own lips.
Got videos of what she says to the crash site. Now, look at this. Something's come down right through them. Snap them, snap them. We've got photographs of what she says is a clean-up operation. So that's what are these people doing?
It's undeniable that something's happened here.
We spoke to Gari Jones, who said the Ministry of Defence tried to shut him down Issue to do with the Section 26.
They've changed the story at least, I would say, a good half a dozen times at least.
So I've got the weather report in. The wind speed, could the wind have knocked those trees over? But actually it just says a gentle breeze that evening, so that's now gone. As well as earthquake seismic activity. Now bear with me on this one. Sometimes when you get earthquakes and we don't know what causes this, you get lights in the sky. These are known as earthquake lights, perhaps caused by rocks rubbing together, generating electric charge, often mistaken for UFOs, but we now know there was no seismic activity that evening, so we can rule out natural phenomena.
Well, there was seismic activity. That was more from the explosion side of things, not the actual earthquake that they're trying to say would knock the trees over, okay? Now, Sufon, oh dear. They put out an article, and I'm going to talk about this in a bit, but this is really the only part that they offered any sort of critique of the evidence for. They're trying to insinuate, right, that this pipe, there is a pipe there, right, that this is probably what was causing the EMF. That pipe's been there for years, and I knew about it from day one, and we scanned it with them, and they know full damn well that that's not causing it. But because now they're at loggerheads with us, because we walked away from them and we continued the case ourselves, I don't know if it's ego or jealousy or something, but look at it up here. Well, I'll read this bit first. We aren't bothered about it either way, but Gary has said there is no pipe or anything man-made in that field. This proves Gary is wrong. Incorrect. They are twisting my words here. I have stated that no man-made or natural sources of EMF can be found, not that there is no pipe or anything man-made. It's the actual energy coming from there. There's nothing man-made or natural causing it. Not there's nothing man-made there. Twisting my words. And I love this bit here. Can this steel pipe create EMF readings? We'll leave that up for you to decide. Well, no. You test it. You do the test. You go and prove yourself on this one. And guess what? I did it for them. And, oh dear. Nothing. Take a look. You can see it there, look, there's the steel, the pipe or steel pipe. And this is my EMF reader, right? And this one, I think it's called GQ EMF 90. And I paid like £125 if I haven't stated that already. It's like a 3-in-1. It does radio frequencies, electric fields, magnetic fields, and it also do like spectrum analysis and things. But honestly, right, there's nothing there. But what I love about it, right, is that they're saying that they're not bothered by it, but then we've got this idiot over here, right, the one they call John. He's been with this group trying to discredit us, and he's been attacking us, right? He's stating it like an actual fact, and the EMF readings used as evidence were plain wrong. The readings follow the metal pipe buried in the ground. No, they didn't. There's the evidence right there. Sufon knows this. They know this, but they're saying it otherwise, just to try and discredit and smear it. And if I say, if they're not bothered by it, then why are they stating it as factual? There's no EMF coming from the pipe, and I recommend, if anyone wants to, go and test it for yourself. Prove me wrong. I'm only asking for someone to, critique it properly, not just state it as a fact and then move on. Right, so Smilog Woods, what caused the broken trees? Well, we know what caused those broken trees, but I'm going to prove it to you. Now this is a map. This is a radar picture of the plane ZZ418, and this is Smilog Woods just underneath it here. And after the events of Pentyrch Fields have taken place, this plane has shifted, along with many other aerial vehicles, over to Smilog Woods. And some of the times here, sometimes they're an hour forward, or sometimes they're correct. I had to go into some conversion races to try and figure this out, but that's the correct time there. It's circling for ages anyway. I mean, this is Land Tristan down by here. Somewhere just by there, look. And then Smilog Woods is right next to that. Look how many laps that plane is doing. And it's right in the area where the impact site is. That's exactly where he is. The center of that, roughly, is the impact site. Now, I had to learn something about this plane because Shadow R1, Snake 48, the Beechcraft airplane, has all these secret technologies on it that I'm not even fully aware of. It's got strange sensors and strange ways to read communications and things. But one of the things I learned about it was something called ISAR. Now, this is a radar that actually has a very unique ability. It can penetrate through thick cloud and forested areas. There's an example of it right there. And what it can do is that it can take a normal radar would just scan below or around the area, and it'll just relay like dots on a screen. But this thing can actually detect what certain things might be there. And you can see in those like greenish, bluish colors there, the reddish colors, look. It can identify a ship, a jet, a plane, an aircraft of various kinds. So this thing is obviously looking for the objects, or at least one of them anyway, hiding in the forest, because that's where it was. And I'll prove it to you. This is another witness statement. Not long after we published some information, people on Facebook were talking, and I spoke to this lady, but this comment here says it all. She said, "My dad was a patient at the Royal Glamorgan Hospital on the night in question. He said he heard a lot of gunfire, aerial activity, and then a huge bang that shook him in his hospital bed. He lived through the war and was an armourer in the RAF, so he knew what he was hearing. He said it was quite unnerving. It was gunfire first. Somebody was shooting at something in that forest. And that guy knows his stuff because he's been in the RAF. He knows what he's hearing. Now there's that helicopter, the Apache helicopter. This had to make a run for Cardiff International Airport. It landed at around 4:34 a.m. Now if you can't understand this time here, this is 4:21. That's the seismic signal being registered by the explosion. So the loud explosion has come along. Those Apaches are still circling, and one of them's had to make a beeline for the airport because he's got generator fire coming out of his cockpit. The generator failed. This is a multi-million-pound helicopter with some of the most incredible equipment on it, and it failed during an exercise. Apparently because of the military saying it was a simulated explosion. No. They opened fire and they got caught in the cross of it, I reckon. That's what happened. Now this is Matt. Spoke to him as well. This is not long after we released some information again. He said, "I was working a night shift at the Royal Glamorgan Hospital. Can't be certain what time it was exactly, but there was a loud bang that shook the whole hospital." I don't know if you've ever seen Royal Glamorgan Hospital, but this is not a small building. This is a really large complex. And he said, "Shortly following, the smell of sulfur was coming through the vents, which seemed to linger all night, through the corridors of the hospital." Now, the smell of sulfur is very interesting because that's like cordite, you know, something that comes from an explosion, an explosive ordnance from actual live weaponry. And this is one of the most consistent things next to the explosion. People reporting this smell of sulfur. I mean, look what else he says here. He says, "I went outside to try and puzzle what had happened, and smoke seemed to mist through the air. Seemed to be coming from towards the common, the Lantris and Common area. I thought a factory might have had an explosion of sorts. That's how powerful this thing was." Anyone ever seen factories explode on TV? They're not small things. Now, the only explanation he said we got later on was from the news that the army were on a training exercise. No, they weren't. That also proves that the hospital people, the staff working that night, didn't know nothing about it. Absolutely nothing. Now, this is something I spent 2 weeks trying to figure out. I wanted to see if the trees in Smilock, you know where all the snap trees are, I wanted to see if I could find evidence that they weren't like that before. Now, it took me 2 weeks to do this. I spent 2 weeks on my machine looking for hours every day of videos, people riding their bikes down these trails because they have GoPro helmets or they have cameras on their bikes. And they like to watch themselves riding the trails and doing the big jumps and everything. This is the area here, and as you can see, the trees are perfectly fine. And pay attention to the date. That's on the 21st of February, 2016, just 5-6 days before. Nothing wrong with it. This is when cars and everyone else went up that on the 26th and the 27th. There's the trail of broken canopies here. There's a photograph of it right there. There's one of our broken trees, and as you can see, that's on the 26th and 27th. Nothing wrong with it before, but now something has gone wrong. And I'm lucky to have got this person. His name's Oscar Green. He's a very keen mountain bike rider, and he goes down those trails. And he was encouraged to speak with me, and we had a real good conversation, and this is a portion of it right here. I'll read it out to you. I said to him, "I understand you go biking down the Smilock Trail. Could you tell me what you saw?" I went up the Smilock in Feb last year sometime, and then a week later, the top of the trees were gone, and the pallet bench we used to sit on. Do you know what date that might be? He said around the 26th-ish or the 28th maybe, so within that time frame. So you're able to say around the 26th of February, the trees at the bottom of the bike trail, where we're at, were snapped off at the top. Yes, he said. And just to show you by here, look, this is a bit more of the conversation. I said, "Is that the area there? This is the area And as you can see, there's the broken pallet ramp, sort of like in the back there, and there's the trees all snapped to pieces. Consistent witness with consistent evidence. Those trees were snapped by something not caused by nature. I asked him any idea what might have caused that. I thought the council had done it. He didn't know what it was at the time, but that area was quickly cordoned off by military, and they wouldn't let anyone up there through the roads, at least anyway, for a good long time. And as Kaz has already shown, they had no permission to do that. So you've already seen this, but I'm just going to show it again. This was just after we did the Craig Charles thing. People online talk about the massive explosion that shook our bungalow and a huge red flash across the sky. So the explosions happened, the home was shaking, and they're seeing this big red flash. The lady goes on to say, "You saw the woods behind you light up? Yes, not something we forget, and we went back to the woods, never did find out what it was." Well, now we do know what it was. That was one of those objects being fired upon, led out to its area, and then shot back into the Smilag Woods, and everything else you've seen fits perfectly. Now we just got some more witnesses to the explosions. I want to read this out because everyone's saying that Kaz is the only witness. No, we got many more. Again, you've already seen the person talking about the green cluster of lights. That's the conversation that Kaz had with this person, and he confirms that this was actually a green cluster of lights. We wanted to confirm that because some of these objects that were seen that night, some of them were red, some of them were green, and they were being chased westward by planes and jets and helicopters, and that's what he saw. Now this is a potential witness on a comment I found online. I put this in later on. I need to speak with him, but because it's fitting a pattern that we've already established, I was out in Chester that night with a friend. We both seen a green orb with a diffused light surrounding it, flying towards South Wales. It never changed shape or made any sound. They're here, just goes on to say for a bit of fun. But that fits a consistent pattern. And anywhere who I haven't spoken to, I just list as potential, right? So you know who I've spoken to and who I haven't. Now this is David again. He said it was around 4 a.m. There was one almighty explosion that came from the direction of where the Apaches were flying around, followed by another huge explosion around 4 or 5 seconds later. So the airborne explosion has happened, and then something's gone thump right into Smilag Woods. And then Mike Henry, another potential key witness. Now this person laid a huge comment out. It's almost like a statement on South Wales Awakening. It was only about a week after the event, and this is a portion of what he said here. "I hurried home thinking I had seen something I shouldn't have. I couldn't sleep for hours after. I think it was about 4 a.m. There was an almighty explosion in the distance, followed by a second, 3 or 4 seconds after. Whatever was going on, the MOD were very involved." This is Donna, just saying the same thing. She saw David and Kaz were running with adrenaline. They were just absolutely on fire, really excited, and their demeanor was totally different. So she's a witness to that. As I said, Donna has witnessed many other things. Character goes to their character. Sometime after me getting into bed, I heard a big bang from outside. I can't say if I'd been woken by the bang or was just falling asleep, but it sounded like a bomb had gone off. And these are two people we actually met when we were going up to Smilag Woods to do some more EMF scans and just look around. These people are called Sarah and Lisa, and I've spoken to them as well. They were walking their dogs, actually, and we were just saying hello, how are you? And they said, "Oh, what brings you here?" And then we got into a conversation, and they told us what they said. That the lanes to Smilag Wood and Beather were closed on the 26th. The main roads appeared open, but the back roads did not seem to be. Lisa goes on to say no one could get into Smilag Wood. Later on, the area had a sulfur smell in the air, and that was apparently for about 2 weeks. And Sarah goes on to say the sulfur smell was present for many days, and this was after the time the explosion happened. Now, I don't know if any simulated ordnance is going to do that. That just releases like a puff and a light, and that's it. Whatever that they used there, that was a very powerful weapon, a live ammunition, and they're not allowed to do that at all anywhere over Wales except the firing range they have in Pentyrch. Unless, of course, they were out in operation doing a real mission that night. They came there to defend this country, or they came there to attack something, and they did it. And they did it under the guise of a military exercise, which we've already disproven. I'll just read out 2 more. This is Chris. I heard a big explosion. I knew there was an explosion as I live right by the Glamorgan Hospital. And this is Rian talking about her friend at the Royal Glamorgan Hospital. She confirmed the hospital shook. It was not an army exercise. Now, one of the reasons that we were given for the roads and why people couldn't get through certain parts of the motorway is that because a lorry had been overturned and it was on fire. You see, no matter which road you took or which area you went, there was always a lorry on fire. That must have been a big lorry. You know, blocking every road that you could possibly access. Some lorry. So I just thought I'll ask the South Wales Fire Service, because who else is going to deal with a fire that day? Could you just send me a list of all fires that you attended on the 25th, 26th of February, and just put it in a chronological order, you know, time and frame and everything, where you went. And this red area here, now, if they were attending the fire for the lorry of theirs, it would have been about sometime around 4 a.m. But if you take a look at the times here, you can see from the 26th we go through into midnight, that's about 17 minutes past. Then we have one close to 1 a.m., then there's another one around 2 a.m., and there's just one after 2 a.m. There's nothing for 4 a.m. and no mention of a lorry. So that was a lie we have uncovered as well. And all you have to do is ask some simple questions. Total lie. They lied about it all. Oh, this is another one. Some people are trying to suggest that what Kaz and David were watching that night was military flares being dropped from a plane. Well, as you've already said, they're not allowed to do that over a public area. They're not allowed to do it at all. But someone asked them, I would like to request information regarding Exercise Chameleon. Can you tell me if there were any aircraft flares set off during this exercise, and if so, when and where? And of course, they say on the bottom there, a search for information has now been completed within the Ministry of Defence, and I can confirm no information in the scope of your request is held. That's straight from their own lips. They did not use flares. And just to sort of back it up, I did it myself. Can you tell me if there were any parachute jumps? They hit that one under Section 26, but the one on the bottom there is, were any devices let loose using parachutes, i.e. flares or chaff? A search again has been completed and there's no information held within the scope of the request. They've confirmed it twice. There's no flares, no nothing let off. Not like that anyway. I mean, this is what the flares look like, just to give you a quick example. They can be dropped from a plane, they come out of a parachute, and they can light up the sky for a minute, 4 minutes. I think the maximum is like 10 minutes. But I think if you're going to see this is something what it would look like. And I'll just play this quick when I'm talking. Just to give you some examples, all right? I mean, you've seen the picture that Kaz showed for you, that big pyramid with the red lights on. Does that look like a pyramid to you with red lights on it? Does that look like something giving out a hand of lightning? Does that look like something giving off red and green barreled orbs? No, it doesn't. You can see the smoke trails and you can see it light up a big area. No one reported anything like this at all. Every witness I've ever spoken to never once bothered to say, oh, that we saw something lighting up with a parachute on it. Nothing of the sort. And there's planes dropping defensive flares there. Just to give you an example of what this looks like. Nothing like this at all. Right, a NOTAM. This is what we call a notice to airmen. This means, right, that they have to sequester an area that they want to train in. They have to file the paperwork, and you've already seen a good part of that from Clarke. They've got to submit all kinds of stuff, you know, the recce, environmental health, list the number of the military craft that are going to be involved. This is them, the government. I put this in my very first presentation, but just to show you again, they listed something for the MOD on the 25th, but they didn't put a commencement date in there. So they say, well, we're going to list it, but there's no date when it's going to commence. They just slapped it in there and hope no one would notice any differently. But as you can see, commence, nothing. This is what a typical NOTAM map looks like, and this is the actual one that they gave out for that night. As you can see, look, you know, you've got the areas that are all cordoned off. This is telling you what time it's going on for. This was from about midnight to 7 a.m. on the 26th. So I thought, okay, then you've listed it there, and you've cordoned off an area to train in. So let's see if we can get the paperwork for it. Just the NOTAM part now. National Air Traffic Services. I asked them, what time was the application made? Could you provide a list of what aircraft and vehicles were used? What time did the official NOTAM get issued? So what time did they authorize it? And could you provide a map of the NOTAM outlining borders and boundaries for said exercise? They have not been able to find anything relating to the specific NOTAM. Nothing. It's okay. So I asked the MOD, figuring that they're the ones that listed it, or so they said. And I asked the same questions again, and all they really did was just delay me, right? You know, usually an FOI of any kind has about 20, 30 days response time. They delayed me. They said they need another 20 working days on top of what I've already given them. So really, they kept me waiting for like 2 months. And the best that they could come up with is, a search for information has now been completed within the Ministry of Defence. I can confirm we hold no information in the scope of your request. They don't have anything. No one's got nothing. And I love this part here, and I think they did this deliberately, or they gave us information that was nothing of what I asked for. I can advise the MOD submits NOTAMs for certain military exercise to the Civil Aviation Authority at least 5 days prior to a military exercise. They didn't list nothing, not 5 days, not 2 months, not even on the day itself, and not even afterwards when we're catching them out. So they say the Civil Aviation Authority must have it? Okay, let's ask them. Guess what? They don't have it either. Same questions, same asks. Following a review of our held information, it's been determined that the CAA holds no information within the scope of your original request. It's a simple request. Just show me where you have this exercise listed and where and when for what people are going to be involved. No government body of any kind, Ministry of Defence, RAF, Joint Forces Command, Civil Aviation Authority, the National Air Transportation Service, and anyone else you ask just don't have it. This was not a military exercise at all. Case closed. Now this is something else that I came across, and I came across this, I can't remember exactly when, maybe last year, but this is a person, right? You see, when you actually have a plane, a helicopter, you know what transponder codes are, right? It's like a signal, it's like a personal number for the plane. And of course they have these things called International Civil Aviation Organization. It's like a code for a specific area that gets read out to tell you what part of the planet you're on, what location. It's like a mobile, it's like an area code of sorts. And I'll play this and I'll let it talk. This is a website that actually monitors these things. And what I find interesting is so 20 odd aircraft at least listed that night, or what was being used. From 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. at least, there's not a single transponder code being given out. They're flying all over South Wales, low over people's houses, causing all kinds of confusion and disruption. And not once is there anything listed. There are those things highlighted in pink and green here. Those are the 26th of February codes. You go through it, right? There's nothing for 2 or 5 a.m. And considering the amount of aircraft up that night, you would expect them to have that. The only they can't switch off their transponders because someone's got to know where they are. So the only thing I can think of is that they're sending them out, but civil people can't read them. Only the ministry or the military people can read them. You know, their own frequency to be read, which is consistent with someone on a live doing a live mission, not a training exercise. Okay. Oh, this is something that I put in my old one. I'm going to play this, right? If you haven't seen NASA Worldview, it's like a satellite that goes over the Earth, it orbits, and it does like scans a certain layer, then it scans another layer, and it does this composite image at the end, right? Now, it seems somebody knew we were looking for information around these dates because for these dates, keep an eye on that down there. As we get close to the date in question, just watch what happens. Everything's there for the day, look. Hope you like the music. So, we get to the 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, and back on the 28th, the satellite comes back on. Somebody hid information from us. And I thought, well, maybe it's just Wales, maybe it's just that little area, but when you actually switch it to the wider view, you know, you can see the whole world. Watch it again. And who says NASA's not hiding anything? Again, I'll try, I don't know if you can see the date there, but it's the 6th, 7th, 8th, and you'll know now that sometimes one day could be missing. For a whole week, no. Whole world satellite went down or someone's deleted that information. You'd figure we might find something in the Wales area. I don't need to play the rest of that, but you can see, right, somebody is deleting information, and I have noticed, sorry?
Any explanation you can give?
No, I've not been able to figure out why that is, but all I can say is that NASA does have a reputation of deleting and scrubbing information from their own servers when it comes to the UFOs, and there's been plenty of evidence to show that. I'll ask them though, follow it up. So, I'm just going to show you this last slide here, because I'm almost done. If no NOTAM was issued, which proves that this is fake, or at least that's fake for the exercise. What was the military and Air Force doing that night? This was not an exercise. So what were they doing, a joyride? They just got bored when I said, come on lads, it's the commander's birthday, we'll just have some fun. No. There would have been serious court-martial and scandals over that, alright? The only explanation is that they came here prepared, ready to do battle with something, or to at least engage in like in a real mission. And I want to show you something here, right? This is the wave. This is like a radio station that broadcasts in mostly the Swansea area. Now these two circles, the yellow and the red one, right, are more or less representing this area here. It's not entirely to scale, but it's more or less accurate enough. You can see there's Lantrisant and there's Pentyrch. All the yellow areas that I've put pins in are people who commented on this page, because the wave itself actually deleted all those comments, but I was lucky enough to find them on Facebook, and people who actually talked about the noise and talked about the problems they were having. I listed and pinned everything where they were, and what I want you to pay attention to is look at that big cluster of yellow pins outside of the NOTAM area. They should not have been allowed to do that at all. It's totally against the rules. They should not have been doing it. And this was after 4 a.m. or going into 5 a.m. and the NOTAM they originally so-called had was for 7 a.m. They're exceeding the boundary, and Kaz has pointed this out to me, that in their own rules, they're not supposed to approach within 3 nautical miles of these areas. So that big red circle there, they shouldn't have been within 3 nautical miles of that boundary, but they've gone 50 miles west outside of it and continued on, carrying on a real thing. They are chasing the rest of those orbs, the barrels. Now, I just want to finish up. I just want to finish up on this, and I'm not going to be nasty or anything, but Swansea UFO Network wrote an article in early April of this year. And this article, right, is just a long-worded, absolutely ridiculous article. It's full of biased statements, half-truths, unfounded claims. They're shifting the blame onto us for all their failings. There's inaccurate statements, and they're twisting and distortion of words. A lot of it is lacking context. They do show posts that me and Kaz have made, especially me, where I do get a little hostile because I'm reacting to their incompetence and their inability to work with us, even though they said they would. You know, and then they just launch into personal insults and attacks, blatant lies, a smear campaign against Kaz in particular. This is a woman who has gone through a tremendous traumatic experience, and instead of actually recognizing that for their own egos, they're attacking this person, and it greatly affects her. It affects me in many ways, but I can deal with it better than most people because I've been doing it a long time. But when you've been through that traumatic experience, you know, you don't give out names, you don't reveal confidential information, you don't do any of that stuff. It's not even an unwritten rule. It's a rule. It's like doctor-patient-client privilege. You know what I mean? And the silly thing is, I'll finish up on this. They know this case is real. They've spoken to the Corwinston witness. They have David. They say in this article that he is a genuine witness. He's brilliant. But yet, for some reason, Kaz is not. Why is that? It's because she walked away from them and went with me. We went together and did this ourselves, and they don't like it. All right, go read the article yourself. It's called the Pentyrch Saga, you know, if you want to. But they know it's true. They know it's real. And Emilyn, at the end of the Sky History thing, stated on their own website that he now has doubts about it. Well, how can he have doubts when he's saying that the other witnesses are genuine and the photos are genuine, authenticated by themselves, and they're trying to say that Kaz and me are just not to be believed? It makes no sense. It's just pure pettiness from them. Anyway, so you can ask yourself the question, why are they trying to discredit the case? It's ridiculous. Now, I'm pretty much finished. I'm going to hand you over to Kaz Clarke, but before I do, ask yourselves then, if people are still defending the military exercise narrative, why is it they can't provide the paperwork? Why can't they provide the documentation? Why is it every question that hits to the matter gets hit with a Section 26? And why is it that they can't find any information on the scope of the request? It's simple. They're not going to tell us anything classified if they came here to deal with interdimensional people. Things like that. There's always a secrecy around it. But anyway, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to hand you over to Kaz Clarke, and I hope you enjoyed that.
I won't keep it too much longer, but I just want to do a quick summing up for everyone. As you remember in the beginning, I asked you to be jury members, to be judge and jury in this case, and to seek the evidence. No official governing body or emergency service knew anything about this so-called exercise. The fire service didn't know, the hospital didn't know, the mainstream media did not know, and residents of Pentyrch and Transponder did not know. The NOTAM team have no information for this so-called NOTAM that was posted last minute. And to top it all, the Ministry of Defence have absolutely no documentation whatsoever for this multi-billion-pound operation. There is no detailed recce required by the MOD. There's no environmental survey, no risk assessment, especially for training over private land. There is no written permission from the landowner without which no exercise could have ever taken place. The Ministry of Defence have lied multiple times on official government documents. They lied about any knowledge of the planes over Pentyrch in the preceding days. They lied about hovering helicopters low over people's homes in the early morning. They lied about exceeding the NOTAM by over 50 miles when they cannot fly within 3 nautical miles of its boundary. They lied about sending a clean-up crew to the fields of Pentyrch, and when asked for a second time, confirmed no information was held, but that was a lie too. They lied about their identity when it is their duty to tell you who they are. They lied about simulated munitions causing the explosions that shook people's homes and the hospital, and registered on the Richter scale 40 miles away. And the answers they did give all fell within the realms of Section 26, not in the public interest. Well, I believe it's very much in the public interest. Hundreds of people called the police on that fateful night to complain about the helicopters hovering over their homes. Multiple witnesses complained about the aircraft noise from well outside the NOTAM area, up to 50 miles away. Multiple witnesses saw the objects the military were pursuing, and some managed to gather photographic and video evidence. Several witnesses experienced road closures that night and found it difficult to get home. Multiple witnesses saw and gathered radar returns for the aircraft above Pentyrch in the preceding days. Multiple witnesses heard and felt the explosions that shook their homes and registered on the Richter scale. This was not a simulated munition. Simulated munitions have no kinetic energy. Some witnessed an object enter the woods that night and the woodland light up. Others heard gunfire and troops on the ground in Smilog Woods, something we know they did not have permission to do. Strange snow witnessed in the fields of Pentyrch and in Smilog Woods when conditions for snow did not exist and was neither forecast. Extremely high and harmful unexplained electromagnetic radiation was found and followed the exact route the pyramid travelled, described by witnesses prior to the commencement of any testing. And finally, I am not the only primary witness, but I am the only one who will speak publicly. So I'm also their voice, so they can be heard too. You've heard the evidence in this case. And even though we are still awaiting answers to some freedom of information requests, I think you will agree the evidence is overwhelming. The only verdict that makes any sense at all is the Pentyrch incident of 2016, above and beyond any reasonable doubt, was real. So where does that leave us? When Kennedy announced putting a man on the moon, we were all involved. When Apollo 13 got into trouble, the whole world watched and waited with bated breath, hoping and praying for the astronauts' safe return. So what has changed that we are excluded now? The more we learn about space, the more ridiculous a notion it is that we are alone. It's not a question anymore of whether or not these things are real. The only question has to be, who are our friends, and indeed, who are our enemies? Because we would be foolish and naive to believe all life forms are benign, when we are not. In the famous words of the late great former President Ronald Reagan, how small and insignificant our problems would be, and how quickly we would come together if we were facing a threat from somewhere out there in the universe. And more recently, Senator Richard Blumenthal said at the Senate hearing for Space Force, "We know what they are doing. Our adversaries know what they are doing, and they know that we know what they are doing. but the American people have no idea. And if they did, there would be some great concern. I appeal to all governments across the world to have an open public discussion on this subject, because we are not alone. And if we are indeed facing a threat, then let us face it together, because regardless of rank or status, race or religion in this world, we are all the same. We are all human beings. We are one race, and we are one planet. Let there be an end to the secrecy, for all our sakes. The new age is upon us. The time for change is now. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.